In 2026, NASA is set to send humans beyond low Earth orbit for the first time in over 50 years. Artemis II will carry 4 astronauts on a 10-day voyage around the Moon, making it the first crewed lunar mission since the Apollo era. As NASA itself describes it, 4 astronauts will venture around the Moon on Artemis II, the first crewed mission on NASA's path to establishing a long-term presence at the Moon. This isn't a routine spaceflight. It's a long-awaited return to deep space exploration. I'm your host, and you're watching Celestial Yearn. Stick with me in this video, and I'll show you all the highlights of NASA's Artemis II mission and explain why it matters so much. For decades, humans have remained close to Earth, orbiting just a few hundred kilometers above its surface aboard space stations. While these missions have been vital for science and international cooperation, they have kept humanity firmly within Earth's gravitational grip. Artemis II will shatter that boundary. It will take humans farther from Earth than any mission before it, retracing a path last traveled in the early 1970s, but with very different goals. Instead of racing against a geopolitical rival, this mission is about rebuilding capability, confidence, and experience in deep space. Because Artemis II is not about planting a flag or winning a race. It's about learning how to live and operate in deep space again, deliberately, sustainably, and safely. To understand why Artemis II is so important, we need to look back. Between 1968 and 1972, NASA's Apollo program sent humans to the Moon 6 times. Those missions were bold, fast, and extraordinarily risky, driven by urgency and national pride. In just a few short years, humanity went from its first orbital flights to walking on another world. And when Apollo ended, so did human exploration beyond Earth orbit. For more than half a century, no astronaut has ventured farther than low Earth orbit. Entire generations have grown up knowing the Moon only through robotic missions and distant images. The Artemis program is NASA's answer to that long pause. Named after the twin sister of Apollo in Greek mythology, Artemis is designed not as a short-term return, but as a long-term presence. The philosophy has shifted. Instead of brief visits, NASA now aims to stay. The goal is sustainable human exploration of the Moon, scientifically, economically, and operationally, as preparation for even more distant destinations. Artemis I, flown in late 2022, was the uncrewed test flight of this new era. It sent the Orion spacecraft around the Moon and back to Earth, validating the heat shield, navigation systems, propulsion, and deep space performance. Artemis II is the next critical step. Just like Apollo 8 before it, Artemis II will not land on the Moon. Instead, it will carry a crew around it, proving that humans can survive, work, and return safely from deep space. Without Artemis II, there is no Artemis III. And without Artemis III, there is no sustained human future beyond Earth. Artemis II will launch from Kennedy Space Center's historic Launch Complex 39B, the same complex used for Apollo and Space Shuttle missions. It is a place steeped in history, now preparing for humanity's next outward step. At liftoff, astronauts will ride atop the Space Launch System, or SLS, the most powerful rocket currently in operation. Designed specifically for deep space missions, SLS produces more thrust at launch than even the Saturn V. Sitting on top of SLS is the Orion spacecraft. Orion is not a space station, and it's not a lander. It is a deep space exploration vehicle, purpose-built to survive high radiation, extreme temperatures, and the brutal forces of atmospheric re-entry at lunar return speeds. Once in orbit, Orion will perform a translunar injection burn, sending it toward the Moon on what's known as a free return trajectory. This carefully chosen path uses the Moon's gravity to naturally bend Orion's course back toward Earth. That means that even in the event of a major systems failure, the spacecraft would still return home. The entire mission will last roughly 10 days. During that time, the crew will travel more than 600,000 miles, loop behind the moon, and experience views of Earth shrinking to a distant blue dot, something no human has seen in over 5 decades. But Artemis II isn't about sightseeing. Every moment of the mission is designed to test systems, procedures, and human endurance in deep space, under real conditions, far from Earth. Artemis II will carry 4 astronauts, 3 from NASA and 1 from the Canadian Space Agency. The crew includes Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Koch, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. Together, they represent a new generation of explorers, shaped by decades of experience aboard the International Space Station and trained for deep space operations. Victor Glover will become the first black astronaut to travel to lunar space. Jeremy Hansen will be the first Canadian to journey around the moon. Christina Koch, already a record header for long-duration spaceflight, brings extensive experience living and working in orbit. But their role is not symbolic. They are test pilots for deep space. Artemis II will be the first time Orion's life support systems are used by humans. Oxygen generation, carbon dioxide removal, temperature regulation, waste management, all of it must work flawlessly, far from Earth. The crew will also test navigation systems, manual control modes, communication delays, and emergency procedures. They'll simulate failures, evaluate crew workload, and collect data that engineers will study in detail for years. Unlike the International Space Station, help will not be minutes away. Artemis II will operate in true deep space, where Earth is distant, communication is delayed, and self-reliance is essential. This mission will reveal how humans actually function when Earth is no longer close enough to intervene. So why is Artemis II not just another moon mission? Because it changes the philosophy of exploration. Apollo was about proving it could be done. Artemis is about proving it can be sustained. Artemis II lays the groundwork for a permanent human return to the moon, not just footprints, but infrastructure. Future missions will build the lunar gateway, test surface habitats, and explore the moon's south pole, where water ice may exist in permanently shadowed craters. That water could be used for drinking, oxygen, and even rocket fuel. In that sense, the moon becomes more than a destination. It becomes a stepping stone. Everything learned on Artemis II feeds directly into Artemis III, the mission planned to land astronauts on the lunar surface for the first time since 1972. Beyond that, Artemis missions will refine the technologies and techniques needed for Mars. Long-duration life support, radiation protection, deep space navigation, psychological resilience. Artemis II is where those lessons begin with humans on board. When the Orion capsule splashes down in the Pacific at the end of the mission, it won't just mark the end of a flight, it will mark the beginning of humanity's return to deep space. The data Artemis II sends back will shape exploration for decades to come. And for the first time in over 50 years, humans will once again look back at Earth from the edge of the moon. If this video helped you understand why Artemis II matters, and why it marks a true return to deep space, support the channel by liking the video and subscribing to Celestial Urine. We break down space missions not just as launches but as turning points in human history. And with Artemis II, we're standing at the edge of one of those moments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next journey beyond Earth.